here with a new film, Mr. Morgan's Last Love, which will have its premiere tonight at the Cut-Off. So please welcome Sir Michael Caine. How do you want me to address you, Sir Michael?
No, Michael.
Michael, okay, thank you very much. Because I know that there are colleagues of yours who also have that Sir before their name, but they, from what I hear, they insist on.
One or two people do. We won't mention any names.
No.
So, but I don't, because to me it's very important, but I don't expect it to be important to anyone else, so I let everyone else ignore it.
Okay, so regardless, I feel very humble sitting here next to you. It's a dream come true to have you here. We have thought of you for many years to bring you here and to offer you the CineMerit Award. This year it finally happened, and I'm very grateful for you that you agreed to come, and also that you are doing what you do. You meet the people, you meet the press. You are wonderful in your professionalism, and thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
In 1956, that's how many years ago? That's almost, well, it's 57 years ago.
That's right, yeah.
That's incredible. And
I'm only 58.
And in that time you made 150 films. That's almost 3 films a year. Yeah. How do you do that?
Well, for a start, you play very small parts like I do. I was very young, and I could do 3 films in a week because I only worked the day on each one. So if you look up in Google, you'll see all these films. But I mean, some of the titles I can't remember being in the film. I would be the butler who came in some scene and said dinner is served. And I was very often the policeman at the end who came and took the gangster away after the hero had found him in 2 hours, you know? So, but I've only been in about 80 films where I played a leading part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's only 80.
Yeah, but I am 80, so it's only a movie a year. It sure is, yeah. And the thing about it, what happened there was that in television in England, they had this masterclass on everything, you know, like ballet, singing, dancing, you know. And then they had movie acting, and they asked me to do it, and they kept asking me, and I wouldn't do it because I said, I don't really know anything that I could tell you about movie acting. I just do it. And then they got me into a studio, and I said, all right, I'll do it, because they were driving me nuts. And they got me into the studio, and they gave me 3 couples of young actor and actress who were doing 3 theatre productions of movies that I'd made. They were doing Educating Rita, Alfie, and Sleuth. And then what they did is that they had them do their theatre performance, and then I brought it down to a film performance, because obviously a theatre performance is too high. And then after that, and they made this book. They made a video out of it, and then they made a book out of it. And there are little tricks in the cinema. I mean, especially with the eyes, which eye you choose to look at and all that sort of stuff. Not blinking too much if you want to appear powerful. Like I am now, looking at all of you. Look. Or if I'm like that, it's fun.
And it's called Less is More. Perhaps you can explain that. Less is in the acting.
In the camera. You see, you've got a camera there who sees everything, what you're thinking and everything. So you cannot start doing acting as you would in the theatre. I mean, I was a stage actor for 9 years. But in a stage, you're speaking, even if you're whispering, the people up there have paid their money, they've got to hear. Here, you can just think, and the camera will see what you're doing. And you can't help it. And so you use the camera. That's what you do.
Yes, receiving the CineMerit Award.
That's right.
Yes, and we chose 4 films to pay an homage to you. These films are Get Carter,
yeah,
The Man Who Would Be King, Hannah and Her Sisters, and The Cider House Rules.
Yeah.
Four of my personal favorites.
Four of my personal favourites. Thank God you said those.
Let's talk a bit about those four films, if you will. Starting with Get Carter, that was made in 1971.
Yeah.
Mike Hodges, he was here at the Munich Film Festival.
Was he?
Yes.
He's a good director.
He's a very good director. He's deaf in one ear and I'm deaf on one ear, and it really matches because
it's
not the same. Yeah, exactly.
I'm deaf in both ears.
and I think there's a nice anecdote in your book about actors who acted in westerns being deaf in one ear.
Yeah, I worked with Henry Fonda, who was deaf in one ear. Henry Fonda was a very famous, I don't know, you see, when you get as old as me, you mention names, and people go, who the hell's Henry Fonda? And Henry was the biggest Western star in America, in Hollywood, you know, and I worked with him. And he said, speak to me in this ear. He said, I'm deaf in that one. I said, how do you get deaf in one ear? He said, Westerns. He said, someone's always blowing some bloody gun off right in your ear. And they always manage to do it in my left one, and it bursts the eardrum. And then I met Richard Widmark, and he was in the same movie, and he said the same thing. And every time I met one of these old Hollywood actors, they said, talk in this ear with me.
We were actually talking about Mike Hodges and...
Oh, sorry, yeah. He can hear with both ears. He can hear things you're not even saying. Mike Hodges is a wonderful director, and it's... Get Carter is about a gangster. And I come from a sort of gangster area, so I knew what I was talking about. And some of my uncles were less than kind, shall we say. And so I played this gangster, and I thought, and everyone thought how tough he was. And then one day I was in a disco, and a real gangster who I knew, one of the real killers from South London, where I come from, and he said to me, he said, I saw that movie, Get Carter, you were in. I said, yeah, what do you think? He said, load of crap. So I said, what? I said, it got very good reviews, but he said, people don't know. He said, you weren't married. He said, we're all married. Why do you think we're stealing money? We've got to keep the family together, he said. And you weren't married, you're just going around killing people and getting money just for yourself. It's selfish. So I thought it was a load of crap. But I did do, in that movie, I was in a big old warehouse on the roof, and I threw a guy off the top of it to his death, right? And they were just going to pull it down in Newcastle, and there was a big... Newcastle is a town in the north of England where I shot it, and there was a big uproar. They wanted to keep the place as a monument to me throwing a bloke off the roof. But they pulled it down anyway. They built a college there, which I think is a much better idea. But it was one of these things, is like, when the body hit the bottom, he fell on the ground, right? So I said to Mike Hodges, I said, well, you never said, I said, why not let him hit a car with a woman and a child in it? And so we did. That's the sort of movie it was. So taking no prisoners whatsoever.
That's why it has remained a classic.
It sort of came, yeah, it's a sort of classic British movie, gangster movie, I must say.
Yeah. In 1972 you made a film which we...
It was Laurence Olivier. I was a bit nervous about working with him because he was the sort of greatest actor, the boss of the National Theatre and everything, and he's also a lord. And in those days, the sort of class system worked in such a way that about 2 weeks before we started rehearsals, it's just Lord Olivier and myself in it. 2 weeks before, I got a letter from him. We'd never met, and he said, I've been thinking that you may be wondering how to address me when we meet. And I hadn't been wondering how to address him. But he said, from the moment we shake hands, I will be Larry forevermore. So he's Larry. But then I remade the film with Jude Law, and I played Laurence Olivier's part. And I am Sir Michael Caine. And I thought how the class system had changed in England, because if I'd written a letter to Jude Law saying, you may be wondering how, he just said, it's up.
Well, you did some with one of the Hollywood.
So he said, I want Sean Connery and you. I said, who am I playing? And he said, Peachy Carnahan, and it was Humphrey Bogart, my favourite actor. So I said, I'll do it. He said, you want to read the script? I said, no, I'll do it. Because it was Houston, you know, and he was fabulous, fabulous. I remember when we were shooting, I'd been working about 3 days, and he hadn't given me any direction. So I said, John, you never give me any directions, you know. He said, you get paid a great deal of money to do this, Michael. You don't need me to tell you. And I was halfway through it, and I hadn't made any mistakes, and he went, cut. And I said, what do you say cut for, John? I didn't make a mistake. He said, no. He said, you can speak faster, Michael. He's an honest man. And so whenever anyone comes up to me and said, hello, Michael, and how are you? I go, crook. But I'll tell you another story about John. We got to the end of the picture, and Sean had to cross this, to walk out on this very dicey rough bridge, which was really scary. I mean, and Sean said to him, he said, that bridge is crooked. And John said, no, it isn't. He said, I was here yesterday, and it was straight. And John said, yesterday, you didn't have to walk on it, so it looks straight. Today, you have to walk on it, so it looks crooked. It's straight, walk on it. And he walked on it.
Where was that movie shot?
She had all these kids out the back from a former marriage. And I'm doing the dialogue, and I looked over her shoulder, and I could see Andre Previn, her former husband, looking at me. And I dried stone dead. I couldn't remember the next line. Very weird. And he was right over her shoulder, you know. It was never, I always get people out, you say, would you mind moving out of the way? I'm looking at her, not you.
What's also weird is that a few years ago we had Barbara Hershey here.
Oh, Barbara, oh, she was wonderful. Yeah, she was my love interest in Hannah and her sisters. And she was great, really great. You know?
Yes, we had her here with an homage, and
oh, really? She's a good girl. She's a very good actress too, wonderful.
And how is Woody Allen as a director?
He directs and he says, you go, I didn't get a close-up in that, you know. He said, no, I don't do close-ups. And then he do all the movie, and then he does his own close-ups at the end. So he said, the only close-ups you see in the movie is Woody. Which came out the year before. It came out in the January before the last year's Oscars was in the February. So it qualified, but only because it was out in the same year. But it was before last year's Oscars. And then I was away doing another movie because I didn't expect to get nominated. Well, when I accepted the movie, I didn't expect to get nominated. And then, so first time I won the Academy Award, I was away. I was in Barbados, I think it was. Anyway, I was in the Caribbean, and I was trying to watch the Oscars in the hotel room, and it was a bit primitive. And I had one of those things. Remember where you used to move the aerial around, trying to get the picture? Is up for Best Supporting. I said, Tom, you don't want to be Best Supporting. Do you know how much we get paid? I said, you're going to get a small motorhome because you're a big star. You shouldn't even be here in Best Supporting. But he did it for this little picture, you know. But then I did Miss Congeniality right after that, and they gave me this enormous dressing room, and there was a sign on the door when I went in, and it said, this is bigger than Tom Cruise's. But they didn't tell me he had 6 dressing rooms.
So So now you have 2 of those little fellows in your...
I have 2 Oscars, yeah, I do, yeah.
You use them as book stands, or...?
No. Well, you know when people win that, they say, oh yeah, I held the toilet door open with it or something. I said, well, why the hell didn't you give it back and let someone who would have... I would have liked it, you know, I'd have won it. I've been nominated 6 times and didn't win. I said, so give it to me, don't hold it, put it, you know, behind used books. My 2 are right there, I have a desk and then a big load of shelves.
Theron, of course.
Charlize Theron. She said to me, my mum's coming, you know, and said, will you have lunch with us? Because she'd like to meet you and have lunch. You know? I sat down, and Charlize had such a wonderful American accent. I thought she was American. And I sat down with her, and her mother started talking Afrikaans. They were Afrikaans from South Africa. I've never been so shocked. But I mean, you know, and I had about 120 kids in there. I ran an orphanage and had babies. You know how to shoot babies in a movie? It's the most, they get identical twins because you can only shoot for half an hour. So you get identical twins, you know, and then you have a man with a great big shave.
Okay, that's it.